Tabletop RPGs like Dungeons & Dragons and Pathfinder have suddenly become popular again, thanks to everyone staying at home. With everyone forced to stay in their homes, people are either fighting Tiamat, the dragon goddess, on a battle mat, or exploring the world of Golarion through apps like Fantasy Grounds or Astral Tabletop. Now, while this is certainly a good thing as this makes tabletop role-playing games popular, more and more people are mentioning the issues that come with playing these kinds of games. Sometimes they complain about the mathematical aspect of the game as not everyone is good at math. Then there are those who gripe about the game's imaginary aspect even if they do use miniatures, pogs, and detailed maps as they need graphics in order to fully conceptualize the combat that takes place in the game. But one of the most commonly discussed and derided aspects of tabletop role-playing games is the constant need for a game master who cannot participate in the game the same way that players do. Hi, hello, and welcome again to another episode of Natural Juan. This time we're going to take a look at what are called Game Master Emulators, a number of book supplements that will, theoretically, allow you to play without a GM. There are actually quite a few of them, and we will be discussing each of the more popular ones, which include Mythic, GM Apprentice, and Covetous Poets. Before we begin though, please feel free to subscribe to my channel and hit that bell for notifications if you like my content. Game Masters are indeed a vital part of tabletop role-playing games. After all, someone has to make all the traps and challenges in the game, and, most importantly, someone has to play all the villains and monsters in the game. I mean, come on, there's got to be a person who'll make the big, five-headed dragon attack the annoying elf bard in the party. That said, what's kind of sad about being a GM is that they can't participate in the game as players do. While they can make what are called Game Master Player Characters or GMPCs, these are often hated because of how unfair they can be as the game might be skewed in the GM's favor. Having a GMPC, especially if a highly inexperienced one, can end up making the game centered on themselves instead of the players, leading to a lot of general awkwardness and unhappiness. Indeed, many parties even prefer killing off GMPCs as a matter of principle whenever they show up. So, while being a GM is a lot of fun in its own right, there are those who might say it denies them the same amount of fun that players actually enjoy in their games. At the end of the day, while they do make adventures, challenges, and monsters for their players to surmount, it excludes them from being a part of the adventure the same way the players are, and are pretty much sidelined in that regard. There have also been a number of people, mostly those new to the tabletop role-playing scene, who have asked me if there are single-player modes for TTRPGs as they tend to be more accustomed to vast, wide-open sandbox games like Skyrim and Grand Theft Auto. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is where Game Master Emulators come in. Game Master Emulators are a system of rules designed to replace or augment a Game Master and his games. While they do require at least some modicum of work at least in the beginning, they can be really fun once the game gets going. More often than not, Game Master Emulators take the form of books or a deck of cards filled with tables and charts that players can use to decide what happens next. As it is with all tabletop role-playing games, imagination plays a key part in using a GM emulator as well as a sense of logic for the setting. There are actually quite a few GM emulators out there, but this time I'm going to discuss three of the more popular ones such as Mythic, GM Apprentice, and Covetous Poets Adventure Creator. These GM emulators are compatible with just about any game out there, so you don't have to worry so much with what goes with what. So, let's start off with GM Apprentice. GM Apprentice is a GM emulator that takes the form of a deck of 120 cards. That's right, these are one of the GM emulators that are a deck of cards instead of a book. Anyway, GM Apprentice was created by Larcenous Designs and was initially meant to assist newbie game masters in setting up their games. That said, because of the sheer inclusiveness and versatility of the system, they can go on to encompass and replace the role of a game master entirely. What this involves is first asking a question such as, "Do we arrive safely?" or "What happens next?" and let the cards answer those questions with the table it has. There are a number of things included in a GM emulator, and here is just a narrow list of them. a simple answer oracle included in it to answer a yes or no question depending on being good, even, or bad, sensory snippets such as the sights, sounds, smells, and textures a character might encounter, an adjective, noun, and a verb to generate an idea for a scene or person, a catalyst to start a scene, belongings your thief might filch, a location to suggest where your characters are, and a set of substitute dice rolls. There are also abstract symbols and runes to give you other ideas on items discovered or what happens next in your adventure, and there are more details that I will probably explain in another video. To those curious, the emulator also has several themes that go with different games. There's a deck for horror, science fiction, fantasy, Age of Sail or pirates, and steampunk, just to name a few. GM Apprentice works best with players who want a quick and simple game, allowing for the plot to thicken as more and more cards are drawn from the deck. The game's sole weakness is that there are only so many cards to be had, and you may need to shuffle the cards several times to make the best out of them. Next would be Covetous Poet's Adventure Creator, which is a series of books, each containing a vast collection of tables and charts. This GM emulator allows you to play tabletop role-playing games like TV shows, as it divides parts of your adventure into several acts that can be divided further into scenes. The Adventure Creator has several tables and charts to answer simple yes or no questions, provide plot twist ideas, and a generator for quests and stuff to do. The GM emulator also provides tables for random objects, events, enemies, and their respective motivations. It also comes in several themes, with the first book featuring horror, science fiction, and fantasy settings. While this is certainly one of the more intuitive of GM emulators, its biggest issue is that you'll need a lot of dice to actually make it work. For one thing, it makes use of a D1000 system where you must roll 3 10-sided dice to generate a number from 000, which counts as 1000, to 999. You also need 2d6 or 2 6-sided dice and a d50 to make use of many of its tables and charts. This problem is best solved by making use of digital dice, as you can have just about any kind of dice you want and just about as many as you want. And saving the best for last, we have the Mythic GM emulator, created by Wordmail Publishing and written by Tom and Tana Pigeon. It is one of the simpler GM emulators out there, but its simplicity is also what makes it so effective. The Mythic GM emulator is centered around the Mythic chart and requires a D100 or percentile dice, which involves using 2 10-sided dice to generate a number from 00, which is 100 in this case, to 99. It even has its own game system that can work well with other games, as it translates characters' abilities to the odds found in the game. Unlike other GM emulators, Mythic has an intricate way of answering yes or no questions with its Mythic chart that allows for more nuanced answers, such as also having somewhat likely odds all the way to near sure thing, and a chaos factor system that measures the amount of trouble that can alter the likelihood of things happening in the game. The game also possesses theme cards that allow for different events that can be horror, action, or drama in nature, but also gives the players the tools to make it their own, such as a comedy adventure or a zombie apocalypse game. All in all, Mythic is definitely one of the more well-known GM emulators out there because of how much freedom players can have with it. Its primary weakness, however, is that it only has a limited amount of idea generators for players and can require a little more imagination from the latter. All in all, though, GM emulators are best recommended for players with a good grasp of the game mechanics already. For those new to tabletop role-playing games in general, it may be best to just read through game rulebooks first to be better prepared for sudden plot twists and incidents. Another challenge one may face in using GM emulators is that these rules tend to be impartial and may end up with an idea, person, or object in inappropriate situations. For instance, you might draw a card or roll up a result stating toaster in an otherwise medieval fantasy setting. In this case, it is best to reinterpret the result to suit your setting, and instead think of oven, where bread is toasted. Anyway, that's it for another episode of Natural Juan. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share it with your friends. If you want more content like this, feel free to subscribe to my channel and hit that bell for notifications. If you'd like to add something or would like to send me a personal message, please comment down below or reach me through my Facebook page. Anyway, this is Natural Juan bidding you all have a good one and see you in the next video.